All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Word with Ty Brownlow. I am your host, Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless, no story is worthless. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are, in the hometown, Chicago. All right?
Hometown.
That's right, Chi-Town.
Yeah.
But we're here on a much deeper level, okay? So we're here to talk about racial inequalities and social justice. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, my guest is the one and only Dr. Kerry Mitchell Brown.
Woo, woo, woo.
Okay, ain't nothing wrong with that. Hey, look, I will take that. I will take that. No, how are you?
I am well. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show to have this very important conversation. I am doing well. How are you?
I am great, and like pretty much like you, I am just, I have no words, but I am very happy that you're here because this is a very important conversation, and I know that, you giving your expertise, on some of these matters, hopefully will open, some minds and some eyes to the things that are going on around us. So let us begin. All right.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Now, once again, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about racial inequalities and social justice, in our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools, what have you. So we're going to cover a lot in a little bit. So just be patient with us, okay? But my first question to you, Dr. Brown, is, when it comes to, these corporate, America companies, pretty much bringing in people of color, how can more companies level the playing field for people of color in corporate America to be seen, valued, and heard?
Great question. Companies must first identify and acknowledge their own practices, either current and historical, of not seeing, valuing, and hearing people of color. Make it plain, own it, and reconcile it. So understanding these realities, Ty, of the people who are mostly impacted really creates the possibility of what can shift. This requires deliberate effort and monitoring. That is really the only way that we can fully participate, regardless of race, in the workplace.
Okay, all right. Now, I find that fascinating because, in order to adapt to what's going on, around us, we must change. And we can't have the same practices that that certain companies were founded on 60, 70, depending on certain companies over 100 years ago, because we don't live in those days and times. So, I understand sometimes you have, board members or what have you, executives who've been with the company a very long time, maybe since its inception or what have you, or they come from families, who have, sat on the board or what have you. But I think in order to be an effective company and, pretty much, to stay the course, especially in this day and time, with COVID, you have to change, you have to adapt, you have to be flexible to the people that you're bringing in. So, okay, all right. Come on now, Dr. Brown. All right. Now, we just getting started, Joe. We're just getting started.
Yeah.
So now let me ask your opinion or perspective on racial inequality when it comes to African American public figures versus law enforcement when we're dealing with, jail time and sentencing, and some examples, we just had, Jesse Smollett here in Chicago and the whole thing, even though it's a little, comical or what have you to some, but, the outcome of that, and then when I think about, what happened to Bill Cosby, and I mean, unfortunately, yes, R. Kelly did, do things that were unnecessary, but the time that he got as well versus others who have committed most, very heinous crimes, such as a George Zimmerman, for killing Trayvon Martin, you know, Kim Potter, who killed Dante right up, you know, to our neighbor to the north in Wisconsin, I believe. And, you know, the cops that killed Breonna Taylor, they got off as well. So, you know, what is your opinion and perspective on that when it comes to jail time and sentencing?
Yeah, it's really, really challenging. And it's so much to unpack here. We must find ways to center creativity in human life and not center wealth and celebrity, right? Of individuals as if this is just like the greatest thing that we've ever had. You know what I'm saying, Ty? Mm-hmm. And so we hold the frustration in our communities about law, and it can be so contradictory, right? And inflexible when people really need to see some justices, right? And so there's a lot mixed there. So there is a distinction between sort of procedural justice, social justice, and, you know, social and utopian justice is you know, like what we're really hanging on here over the last several years. So let me be very clear, Ty. Violations against girls and women, it's never acceptable. And any violator must be held responsible, right? Cops should not kill people. If there's any group of people that should not kill people, it should be cops. They are trained to in alternative methods for resolving disputes. They should not kill people. If it does happen, the murdering cops will be brought up on charges, held accountable for their crimes, and families will receive economically respectable compensation. How about let's just stick with cops should not kill people?
Come on now. Come on.
Let's stick with that, and you don't have to worry about like any sentencing, right? The criminal justice system has never been set up for us to begin with, right? There are flaws with the 13th Amendment exclusion, right? Around enslavement, right? So the early trappings of criminal justice, right? And the imbalance of racial inequities around our criminal justice system. And so like these sentencing, you know, it's disparate across states, across cities, across people. I mean, there's nothing standard around sentencing, right? And so if there's no standard around sentencing, it's really challenging to even have standards around, you know, how it is administered, you know, by individuals or by groups or by crimes. You know, who has the, you know, the largest wallets usually gets the greater defense, the smaller sentencing. I can't even begin to unpack this, you know, for you because it's so complicated, and it's not, I mean, the folks that you have here, it's even different crimes that they're accused of and convicted of, and so the sentencing, you know, is wrong. Criminal justice, there hadn't been a whole lot of justice in criminal justice for people in the communities in which you and I come. There's a whole lot of work that is required around that, and we have to be able to, you know, really separate celebrity and their violations. Like they're humans too, make mistakes and should be held accountable for any of their wrongdoing, and cops shouldn't be exempt for any of their wrongdoing either. And you know, standardization on sentencing, or to have some common standards across the board will be nice.
Hey, look, as you said, hey, you know, violations against women, you know, children, what have you, that should not occur. And if it does occur, yes, you should be held accountable for it. Spot on. I am spot on, you know. You know, but when cops are killing people, you know, and particularly, you know, people that look like you and I, you know, and they're not getting, or we're not getting the justice that we're seeking, you know, because of whatever foundation they find themselves from under the law enforcement umbrella, you know, cop, detective, what have you, you know, that's just not fair. And at the end of the day, you know, that's why you have these marches. That's why you have these protests. That's why you have these rally cries. That's why you have these Black Lives Matter movements or what have you, you know, because I'm just thinking back to Ferguson, you know, in Missouri, like a couple of years ago, and the things that happened down there and how a whole town was under like civil unrest, you know, and, you know, like, after that, you know, we found certain people who were a part of that movement, you know, just mysteriously come up, you know, expiring, you know, through whatever method or what have you, whether it was through, you know, gun, hanging, or what have you. But like, we've just seen so much injustice for us when it comes to law enforcement. It's like, okay, when are we going to get our fair shake? When are we going to get our, you know, like true justice for us? You know, like, this person did something wrong. We're marching out, we're yelling about it, and, you know, there needs to be something happening. Now, on the flip side, like I said, well, like you said, you know, we have to, you know, separate celebrity from the person, okay? This person did this, all right? So let's just start there, you know? Let's just start with the human side of people. This person committed this crime. Yes, they should pay for that crime. But when it comes to sentencing, you know, I feel as if one side, hey, you know, like, yes, they're going to be convicted, but they're not going to be convicted as, you know, a person that really, you know, like, let's say, African-American killing another African-American or what have you, you know. No, that's, anyway.
There are laws. There are laws that are set up and procedures. So if you follow these types of procedures, well, it is okay if this is the outcome, if you follow this procedure. We don't know those, you know, like, what procedures, like, when is it okay to use force? When is it not okay to use force? Major overhaul in the criminal justice system, and, you know, is required.
Yes, major overhaul.
And it's not just individuals, right? And so what about the things that are protecting the individuals? And so we will also often hear, Ty, about people's long history, or individuals' long history of wrongdoing, you know, behind it, using their shield or on the job, and the system that protects their wrongdoing and not holding them, you know, accountable. So there has to be a system, you know, that identifies and gets rid of the instigators, creates the space for people who are really there wanting to protect and serve, within the limits of the law, and upholding, you know, their honor and their pledge that they made, and an opportunity to educate the weak and confused, you know, folks who are just standing around like, well, yeah, this should be okay and it should not be okay. But what are the systems? What are the interventions that are required in the system to make these changes? Because, you know, cops are just not killing cops because they decided they wanted to do it. Cops are killing cops because there's a system that allows them to do it.
Look, as you said, there's a lot of that. Look, we could spend a whole show talking about that issue.
We can spend 3 shows.
You're right. Like, that's
sure.
a series.
Yeah.
That's a series. And seriously, We'll just talk about that in a minute, but no.
Book me for that series.
Yes.
Book me for that series.
Yes. Seriously. Hey, yes. And if I can do anything about it, I will have it. I will have that panel. Okay. But no. So my next question, I'm going to phrase it in this manner here. You know, a lot of times we talk about us receiving our just due. Reparations, almost in a sense, if you want to take it there, but in this day and time, I'm just thinking about, okay, we deserve, our fair shake. We deserve, everything that's coming to us, not just on a monetary, level, but overall, just for our improvement as African Americans and the African American community as well. But we're both here in Chicago, and we know there are certain sides, especially the south and west sides of Chicago, where, they're just barren. They don't have the resources that, they desperately need when it comes to certain things. So let me just ask, like, how can communities of color, particularly African American now, with limited resources to healthcare, schools, education, quality food markets, or what have you, etc. How can they get major corporations to invest in them with the promise of improving the neighborhood without the threat of gentrification? Because we know that's usually what comes with it.
Yeah. Stop investing our limited resources in major corporations that don't invest in our community. Like, we have dollars, we have choice in how we spend our money, whether we have, small stacks of money or large stacks of money. We can work with our local jurisdictions on holding corporations accountable, work with our aldermen, work with our local elected officials. We can also engage corporations. Corporations, a lot of times, especially your larger ones, they have foundations. They have community development initiatives that we could take advantage of, that we could show up in their office. We can call their offices. We can send them emails. Many times there are investment commitments that they can actually use some assistance and some guidance on operationalizing these ideas and these commitments to invest in communities where they can have greater impact if they can actually hear from people who actually live in the communities for investing, right? And so sometimes it's called targeted investing. They want to invest, in computer labs in our libraries. They want to invest in, initiatives. There are so many companies, Ty, who had committed to doing better in 2022 after the death of George Floyd, right? Companies espouse that they're going to do better around racial justice, around improving the material conditions of Black folks in this country. Well, guess what? The future is now. Call up some of those organizations who set aside millions and millions and millions of dollars and say, hey, here's what investing in Black people, investing in Black community looks like. And some of the corporations are not even, based in communities, but are still willing to invest some of those dollars. A number of major publications had invested, had pledged to make investments. I know Goldman Sachs had like a $10 million investment. Citigroup had major investments. Whole Foods, you can walk into Whole Foods and they have a something on the wall. It's like, invest in XXX community. Who is picking those communities? Who's picking those initiatives to invest money? Call them up. Do you have an investment? Do you have an investment in your community that you can get folks keyed into? Yeah. There's a way to invest, right? If Pepsi's not investing in your community, stop drinking Pepsi. That's true.
Right? That's true. Mm.
You know, are there some things that we, you know, don't have a lot of choice on investing in corporations, right? I mean, our houses, you know, are wired, and receive electricity from the local electricity company. So you don't have a whole lot of choice sometimes in that. But who you buy your car from, who, you know, the gas company you use to fuel up that car, where you buy your groceries. We have a lot more choice. We have a lot more power.
Mm-hmm.
So they want us to believe the lie that we don't have power, but we have a lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of power. We have a lot of power in choice. We choose where we spend our money.
And I mean, just pretty much to your point, like, you know, we spend our dollar, you know, in pretty much every other thing that, you know, except, you know, what we are invested in when it comes to like smaller African American community, you know, like companies or what have you.
There's black businesses in the West Side. There's black businesses on the South Side. There's black businesses all around to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Invest in black businesses, invest in black business owners. You know, it doesn't have to be just black business, small business Saturday, or invest in black businesses during Black History Month. Do it every day.
Yes.
Black History Month 365, right?
Oh, come on now. Talk to me now.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
You better
Yeah.
talk that talk, as my granddaddy would say. You better talk that talk. Okay?
Talk that talk.
Talk that talk. All right. No. You, hey, spot on with everything. You know, seriously, like, get these companies to invest in us, you know, and that's one thing I was always told, even as a child, you know, from everything you eat, drink, put on, or what have you, you know, that's an investment. You know, if that's what you like, invest in that. Get those people to come here to invest in us, develop programs for us to, you know, do better and, you know, bring our communities up, and, you know, so we can have so we can have a fair shake. And I'm going to keep using the word fair shake, but yes, we deserve a fair shake. We deserve to be in a race as well, you know, especially when it comes to tech and things of that nature, because tech is changing the world. Okay.
Right. That's right.
As we speak. So. Yeah,
right.
Come on. All right. Okay.
Come on.
I'm gonna get off a soapbox now. All right.
You can stay on it if you want to.
Okay. See, now you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and stay on the soapbox now. But no. Okay. But no. You correct. Now I want to talk about a topic. You know, like, if you go through social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, what have you, you know, you will see it all around. You hear it on the news from time to time. But when it comes to, you know, black women being harassed in corporate America and the LGBTQ plus community in corporate America, how can we, you know, advocate for them to work freely in their surroundings without them, you know, constantly being, you know, harassed, as we said, by some of these old world policies from some of these corporate America companies?
Yeah, this is a really great question. You know, this reminds me of a quote of our beloved Bell Hooks. We lost her late last year.
Yes.
But she had a quote. It went something like, I don't know if I can remember it verbatim, but it went something like, no other group in America had their identities socialized out of existence more so than Black women. So when we talk about Black people, it tends to focus on Black men. When we talk about women, it tends to focus on white women. I know you've heard this, you know, sort of comparison before, maybe metaphor, but this is especially true in organizations and workplaces. The intention around your historic and many current diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging, whatever we want to call it, interventions are focused on improving workforce outcomes, they often miss the mark for Black women and members of the LGBTQ community. And the reality is that work and workplaces have historically been designed by men, right? And organizations often assume what Black women and people who identify as LGBTQ plus need, when really engaging with us for self-determinant solutions is a really good process. Like asking us, Black women and LGBTQ individuals, what they need and to offer it will go a long way.
Okay. All right. Come on now. All right. Look, so that brings me into my next question. And we hear so much about this now, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. But as we were just, speaking, sometimes that always doesn't work in corporate America. Can you just talk about how diversity and inclusion don't always work in corporate America?
It don't always work anyway. Not just in corporate America. It don't always work in other types of organizations. It doesn't work in schools. It doesn't work in a lot of institutions and different types of sectors as well that we find that we move in and out of daily. Ty, what I would say is that unfortunately there isn't a shared understanding of the practice, right? I mean, we get so tongue-tied on what are we calling? Is it diversity? Is it equity? Is it inclusion? Is it belonging? Is it othering? Is it bridging? Is it bonding? Is it networking? Is it, we have so many different ways that we refer to it. And when we do that, we often get into this war of definitions, this war of defining what it is, right? And so much so we spend so much time on trying to define what it is that we peter out before we actually get to doing the work, right? And so since there isn't a shared understanding or a practice of what it is that we're often, trying to take up, there's not a whole lot of clarity of what is required for changing. And in the instances where there is a shared understanding, there also must be a willingness for leaders to really open themselves up and open the organization up to outside scrutiny. And, it's almost this ability to bare their soul, take responsibility and move forward to the future desired states once it has determined sort of where they're headed. But part of the challenge is it's like, well, this has started before I had got here. It's just sort of always been this way, or I ain't never owned no slaves. How often have you heard that? Or I have been working my entire life for the betterment of Black and brown people. I am not a racist. And so we oftentimes are hoping and wanting the same thing, but we're talking at various different levels. We're talking about intervention or individual interventions where we need like systems interventions and just major shifts. And so also there has to be an ability for leaders to be decisive, to take direction from people that they hadn't taken direction on from before. So for example, men taking direction from Black women on what they actually need. So that's a power shift, right? And so that's giving up some power or sharing some power, which is different. What do you mean? I'm supposed to be in charge here.
Right.
You're telling me what to do? Whoa, things are shifting, right? And so if you think about the shift in the workforce, right? And so it was just like white men were running things. It was like, oh, white women, when we retire, you'll have your turn. They've been hanging out waiting for their turn. It's like, oh, we need to change some stuff. We need to have more people of color. We need to have more Black women in leadership positions. And the white women are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We've been hanging around here for a couple of decades because you said that we will be next.
There it is.
What you mean we're not going to be next?
There it is.
What do you mean we have to move over because now we need to make space for Black women to lead, right? And so there's deep commitment from organizational leaders to take on this work over the long haul. When people stop protesting in the streets, when people are not safe at home because there is a pandemic, oftentimes there's not a plan. There's not a plan of action, and organizations are being reactionary, hoping to take this up. There are a number of reasons why it doesn't work, right? Organizations can't do it alone. So not having the right people with the right skill set leading and the journey with the right interventions.
Okay.
You
hit on some very key factors, like we just really need to put the egos aside, and if it's for the betterment of, the company and each other as well, then make it so. And that's all I'm gonna say on that. All right. So
yep.
But
it's not working for any of us.
There it is, y'all. There it is. Okay. But now I've come to the last question, which is the question that my show is known for, and I would love to hear your answer to this. Dr. Kerry Mitchell Brown, what is the one word that best describes you and why?
One word. Oh. I would have to say one word, optimistic. I see the glass half full. I'm always bringing good vibes with me because I want to share them with you. When that's not possible, I want to maintain a growth mindset. Always asking myself, what should I be learning? What should I be noticing? What should I be paying attention to? And I do believe that our brightness, our collective brightness, greatly impacts our moods and other moods as well. So I just want to bring it in this work that, I do. I want to bring optimism and positivity. And so, if I make you feel bad about what we're processing and working on, then that doesn't help us move through it in any way.
Okay. All right, y'all. Man, I'm gonna have to give you the stamp stuff for that. Okay, come on. But if people want to get in contact with you, if they want to, talk to you, they want to see what's going on, social media, website, what have you, how can they?
Website, kerrymitchellbrown.com. That's Kerry. And Dr. Kerry M. Brown on all, is my social media handle on all platforms. So you can reach me there.
There it is, y'all. There it is.
Yeah.
Seriously, I thank you for being my guest. You have to come back because we have to have more conversation. We got to have a part 2, okay? But
right.
Look here, no problem. Hey, look, I'm gonna make that happen. Because there's so much more I want to get into. Yeah. So much more I want to get into.
Yes.
But, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Word with Ty Brownlow. I've been your host, Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless, no story is worthless. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Word with Ty Brownlow, or go to my website, tybrownlow.com. Definitely get this wonderful interview, plus other great interviews. Dr. Kerry Mitchell Brown. We out. Peace, people.